Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and this is episode 30 of the Yarn Randomizer. And this is my little knitting podcast, or whatever you want to call it, that I do every couple of weeks. And I'd like to say, oh yeah, and it's the 10th of August, which I can't believe it's August already. But yeah, I'd like to welcome folks back who've been watching, and I'd like to welcome anybody who's just stumbled across my podcast, or maybe you're here after watching my chicken seaming video, which I still kind of wince about because I should have done a better job towards the end of it, is keeping things on camera, but I will do something about that at some point. But okay, and so other than that aside, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry. On Instagram, you can find me as original.annasender. And on Ravelry, I'm the Yarn Randomizer there. And at Gmail, if you need to contact me. And I have a post office box down below. I use that to have a return address for when I mail things out. And also there is a Spreadshirt shop as well, linked below. Why randomizer? See, I do not have my little bucket here right now, but I do have one of my chips. And so all the yarns in my stash are assigned numbers. And when I need something new to work on, or want something to think about, I have usually my husband pull a number from my bucket of chips, and I have to figure out what to do with that yarn. And that can be some leftover yarn, some yarn I've never touched, some yarn I haven't. I had one a few years ago that was from a 30-year-old yarn. Now I don't have any yarn left that old, mainly because I've been using this randomizer thing. But yeah, so it's like, it gets picked. I have to figure out what to do with it, and I have a lot of fun doing that. That kind of adds to my knitting mojo and stuff. So please like and subscribe if you find this informative or interesting. And stuff that helps more people find it and everything. And so let's see, there was one thing. Okay, we're going to head right into it, but one really quick note. I had a subscriber Lisa, I needed in Ireland that I need to mail off the skein to, that she had won. And when I went to go mail it, it was going to cost a significant amount, more than I usually have to mail, which I was fine with. But then they said you were going to get charged like $30 on the other end of this thing. So I'm looking into another way of shipping this over there. And so I'll get in contact with you and we'll figure it out and stuff. But worst comes to worst, I'm actually going to be in Great Britain in March next year, and I could mail it while I'm there. But we'll see. I should get it to you much sooner than that. But yeah, I was like, I didn't have any problem paying a little extra to ship it, but the idea that you were going to be charged on the other end of it was just like. And I asked the guy, I said, "Can I pay for that here?" And he's like, "No, I can't." I was like, "Oh, okay." So held that off. Okay. So, and speaking of giveaways, we will be talking about some stash management and a destash that I will be offering up to you folks later on. Okay, all right, now we'll get down to it. What I'm wearing. Okay, this is an Amber OBrien pattern called the Festive wrap. It's a great mini skein shawl. It uses, I think I had... was it 12 or 20? A whole bunch of different mini skeins that were used in this. This was actually a pattern from Jimmy Bean's Wool Craft Vent from, I think it was 2021. And this one is a pretty simple pattern in that you've got a really nice lace panel. You've got a this traditional, now for some reason I'm drawing a blank on the name of, feather and fan lace as well. And you've got I believe might be some slip stitches in there, but another pattern. And it's just those three patterns repeated over and over with different colors of yarn. Now, this set of colorways, this is all Madeline, I believe this is all Madeline Tosh, Tosh Merino Light. Take a look at that. Yep. And it was, this whole combination of colors was called Ribbon Candy. Now, this was a holiday wrap and it was called Ribbon Candy. I'm still not entirely sure. I mean, when I think of ribbon candy for the holidays, I think of, you know, greens and reds and things like that. So there may be something else they're referring to here. I don't know, but I love this combination of colors. And speaking of that, this combination of colors, we're going to be talking about that in stash management later on. So, but yeah, so it's one of my favorite wraps that I have. It turned out so nice. It was so simple because it was just those repeated 3 patterns. And it was a really great way to use up a bunch of different mini skeins and stuff. So I highly recommend it. And OBrien has a lot of great patterns and stuff. So that's what I'm wearing. Now, as far as finished objects, no finished objects this week. Well, we'll get to it. I had an idea of something I might finish for this week, but I can promise you I'll finish it for next time. Now, in the meantime, I've got a variety of whips. Now, I always like to be upfront about if I have things that are kind of hibernating or waiting, and I've just got three things that are kind of hibernating right now. 2 blankets that I only work on when yarn gets picked by the randomizer to use in them. And so one is my National Park blanket, and the other one is it's just a 10-stitch blanket. I actually have it right up here right now. And for those who aren't aware, this is my IKEA. This is a pegboard from IKEA, and it's where I keep a lot of things that are in progress and stuff. So yeah, so it's that 10-stitch blanket is right there, and my other thing that's in hibernation is my On the Spice Market shawl by Melanie Berg, and it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of like I just haven't been in the kind of mood to pick that up again. But I think as I wind some of these other things down, that will be coming out of hibernation. But those are my only 3 whips that are kind of not getting attention right now. Everything else I'm actively working on. And actually I just have, how many active projects right now? It's just 6, well, minus 1, 5 active projects. And so we'll get to it now. So as promised, I promised last time, I said I was going to finish the motorcycle sweater sleeve, and I did. And of course it's curling up like a long tube because it is stockinette. But yes, it's completed. It's kind of a set-in sleeve, sort of. It's kind of got this kind of straight edge, almost like really kind of a raglan type shaping for when it gets sewn together. It's got every other row decrease for a while, and then it gets a little steeper up here with an every row decrease. And the interesting thing was I had to kind of figure out what to do on the opposite side for the decreases in the pattern. So this is an old pattern from 1961, Mary Maxim, and you can see it linked in my project. And the interesting thing, they have you do all increases as knit in the front and the back of the loop, which I did not do. I did right and left make ones along the edge as the sleeve increased. And then for decreases, they just said basically knit 2 stitches together, which would mean you'd be doing the exact same decrease on each side of this. And I thought, yeah, I'm not doing that. So I basically went 1 stitch in, and on one side I did slip, slip, knit, and on the other side I did knit 2 together. Now on the knit 2 together on the opposite side, I just did a purl 2 together, which gives you the same result. But I had to kind of finagle the other side once I had to decrease on the purl side also to get the same look. But I was able to do that by, I think I purled 1 stitch, slipped it back, slipped the 2nd stitch over the 1st stitch, and then brought that all over, and that got the same appearance as far as a decrease line on the front. But yeah, so it's got this the stranded color work at the bottom. And so the next thing I'm going to do is do the next sleeve. I did have to size this sleeve up from the pattern. The pattern maximum size, let's see, is here is for a 44-inch chest. My husband doesn't have a 44-inch chest, and he's the kind of guy who has kind of football player shoulders, like these really broad shoulders, but he still wears like size 40 pants, and so I had to size it up so that it fits up here for him. And so I did that sizing up, included that at the sleeve here. So I sized these sleeves up an extra stitch on each side. Is it extra two stitches on each side? I started with an additional extra pair of stitches and then added 2 more stitches up top. So it's 4 stitches wider around so that it will fit him. And so yeah, so sleeve is done. Next sleeve will be getting casted on today, and I will get that. It does go fast since this is on the size of the needles on this for the main part of the sweater. It's a 7mm needle, and that doesn't have a US standard size for it. But yeah, that's the, do they say it? Do they actually give, hold on, now I'm curious. What do they say on here? Here we go. US 7mm, 10.75, US size 10.75. So that's interesting. So yeah, so I'll get that next sleeve underway. And then my plan is to knit the 2 front sides of the cardigan and figure out how to deal with the intarsia that's there. I've finally kind of settled about how I'm going to do the intarsia on the back, but I want to make the 2 front panels first to experiment a little bit, and then I'll do the back and stuff. And so yeah, so I really do want to get this done before let's say before December. This will be a Christmas present. Now I'm going to take this off right now because it is getting a little warm in here. It's not the warmest, yeah, it's in the 70s, upper 70s outside, but with the air conditioning off and kind of windows closed so I don't get a lot of ambient noises in here, I'm getting a little warm. Okay, so progress, real progress on my husband's sweater, and he's excited about it too. All right, now the next thing in my list of projects is the big year-long blanket that I'm doing. And so I'm finally on to the last section. So there's 7 sections in this blanket, and this is Stephen West's Slipstravaganza blanket. And this is a DK weight blanket that takes like 16 skeins at least. There's the main color can take an extra one depending on the yardage you have in your DK weight yarn. Of yarn, and I am, I believe, 65% of the way through this. And so I'm on to the chevrons, which is the last section. Oh my goodness. And you can see this thing is absolutely huge. Maybe I can peek up over that a little bit. But yeah, so I've finished all the triangles from the previous section, and now I'm a couple rows into the chevrons. And the chevrons will take the rest of the year. So there'll be stripes in the chevron for each of the contrast colors repeated 2 times, with the main color in 2 rows of the main color in between the sets of 6 rows for each stripe. And there's some slip stitch detail happening in there where you're slip stitching the main color over the other one. Now, the interesting thing was when I finish the triangles, I get to the end of the triangles and I'm off by a stitch. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I've been very careful about making sure that the stitch counts are right. And the way the pattern's organized, it's not difficult to make sure you're not missing something. And so I could not figure it out. I'm like, how could I be off by a stitch? And I started working my way back, just looking back at all the triangles, and come to realize that what happened was, and I have no idea how this happened because I was really careful. I thought I counted the stitches for every triangle. The very first triangle was 16 stitches across instead of 15. So it consumed an extra stitch, and that's what made me short on the other side. But this had the effect of making the entire set, every single triangle, not exactly where it was supposed to be. It was off. So basically this line here is supposed to be centered between the two triangles. So it's ended up uncentered. Now I was kind of like, there's no way I'm going back and undoing every single one of those triangles and just to get that centered. So I decided to live with it. What I did do is I adjusted it a little by, when I worked around on a row, I added a stitch on this side and reduced a stitch on the other to see if it would help balance it out a little bit. Don't know that it really helped that much, but the bottom line is there is a unique characteristic to my blanket. And I will live with it, because I think when somebody's looking at this blanket, nobody coming to stay and having this blanket in the guest room is going to realize that this thing has that mistake in it. So that's okay. It's just kind of comical. It's like to get the first one, make a mistake in the first one, and then whoosh, get the rest of them correct. Like, oh my goodness, too much. So yeah, so that's it. So my blanket will have a little bit of personality, and that's all there is to that. So I've got another, was it August 4? I say, yeah, 4.5, just about 4.5, a little less than 4.5, or a little more than 4.5 months to go, and I'll have this complete. But so I do 520 for anybody who isn't tuned into this project. At the beginning of the year, I set up so that at the beginning of the year I would knit about 540 stitches a day, and by my spreadsheet calculation, which is linked in my project, you can take a look at this. By doing that many stitches a day, I would have this blanket, 86.5-inch blanket, completed by the end of the year. So I did all the calculations to do that and figure out kind of where I should be at what point and that kind of thing. So it's been a year-long project, and I'm going to do a different huge Stephen West blanket next year in the same way. I'm going to go through the entire year and work on another blanket, big blanket next year, and that'll be for my bed. And so yeah, so that's this project. It just keeps going. And I will set this down here for the moment. All right, now the next thing, and so it's funny, these first 3 projects we're talking about are not randomizer projects, but now we're getting into the randomizer projects. Now, the next one is my Ilha Sweater, which is, I think, I'm trying to remember who the designer is for that. Did I have that there? Orlane Suchi, I hope that's right. And I'm doing it in Bare Naked Wool's Hemp Shawl, which is a yarn that is a combination of hemp and some merino and silk. And so I have finished the kind of the lace work in the yoke, so you can see that. I've got it on a small set of needles. Let me see if I can hold that up for you. So you can see there's a variety of kind of twists and cables and that kind of stuff down to here. And then it's plain, and I'm doing let's find some of they're relatively subtle, the increases for the, oh, well, helps to look for where the marker is. Okay. So you can see here where I'm doing, there are increases happening for a raglan, kind of for the sleeves and the front. So you kind of have circular down to a point. Now I have 4 points where I'm doing increases, like as with traditional raglans. And so yeah, so I am really liking that. And see, how well can you see the detail? I'm going to hide from the camera. But yeah, my only concern is, I think I mentioned this before, I'm knitting this on size 8 needles, and the fabric feels somewhat open, but I did do a blocking experiment, and when you look at the fabric itself, it looks pretty deep. I think it looks good. And so we'll see how this turns out. I was thinking about making it long sleeve because I have enough yarn to do that, but maybe it would make more sense as a summery type sweater in short sleeves. But I'll make that decision as I come to it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Now it's just a vanilla, just stockinette until I get done with the body and then the sleeves. And at the bottom of the body and the sleeves, there's a nice texture pattern there and everything. But this is smooth sailing for the rest of the time. And so yeah, so I made some decent progress on this since last time. And this is the 10th yarn that I picked this year for my Yarn Randomizer. I don't do my Yarn Randomizer choices necessarily in order because sometimes they're big projects and sometimes they're just little leftovers I'm doing stuff with. And so I will, as I'm doing bigger projects, I will pick up smaller amounts that may have been picked later in the year to have small projects that are more portable and everything. It's always, I always love when I go places. I was at one place waiting in line for something, and when I finally went in there, you know, I had my knitting in my hand. They're like, "Oh, you came prepared." It's like, yep, always have my knitting with me, always have it to do, so that anytime I have to wait, I can knit. I always remember my middle son used to be like, "Are you gonna knit now?" Yes, I'm going to knit right now. I think he was the only one that expressed a little embarrassment about me always pulling out the knitting. All right, so the next thing I'm working on, I cast on, I think I had the toes completed last time. So this is Yarn Randomizer project number 17. I think I had the toes, or maybe I didn't, but I'll have to look back at that. But I have a pair of socks that I'm working on, and they are the Garancia sneaker socks. And so this was with my 17th choice of the year as far as yarn. And so there is the foot. And so the yarn that got picked out was this Molly Girl Diva yarn in the colorway Pour Some Sugar on Me. And I was a little concerned about how much of this I had. So if you can't see that, it is a yarn with stellina in it. And so I decided to get a contrast color for the toes. And so I had some, this Tink yarn, their sock yarn in Kush, the colorway Kush. And so I thought some purple toes on these blue socks would be kind of interesting. And so it's funny, when I started these, you know, I picked out this pattern because I thought it has a really interesting looking heel, and the back of the top of the sock, I liked the structure there. It looked interesting. And so I thought, I'll try these out. Well, I go to the pattern when I go to cast on, and say, oh, it's in German. And I may have mentioned this last time, but they have a test knit going on right now in English, and I'm using the instructions. I didn't like say, hey, I'm going to test knit this. They just had the instructions available for free. And so I'm using the test knit instructions. So that means you have to take some care to see if there's any mistakes and that kind of thing. And I would definitely post to the group if there were mistakes in that. And actually, so saying that now, I do need to say something, because their chart for the lace here, the chart is illustrated correctly for the lace, but the legend for the lace has the the knit two together and the slip slip knit. It has them labeled opposite of what they are on the legend. So when you see that right leaning or left leaning line, you know what to do with, you used charts before, and you should just do that. But for some reason in the legend they have it wrong. And so I will have to mention that if somebody hasn't mentioned that already. So I did, yeah, I've done it correctly, you know, in the right way here, so that it has the, right leaning decreases here and the left leaning on the other side for the lace areas. But they're really cute. Now the tricky thing is I've been trying to figure out when to start my heel. And she mentions in her pattern that she knits her socks to the length of her foot, and just uses negative ease around the circumference. I tend not to do that. I tend to knit the length a little shorter than the length of my foot, as well as basically having negative ease both directions, that is around the foot and in the length. And so I will probably follow that. So I've gone through and calculated where this heel starts and where it turns up and becomes vertical. So I think I have to knit about 7.5 inches in length on the foot to know when for when I need to start that heel and get that foot the length. So we'll see how that works out. But I'm knitting both of these at the same time, both socks. So I've got to start on the other one. So I'm going to catch this one up with this one here shortly. I like to do like 16 rows at a time when I'm doing the parallel socks in parallel like this. And I don't knit socks on mat. I like using 2 circulars, and I don't like using doing both socks on the same set of needles, because I feel like it gets fiddly, and I always worry about how much strain is being put on the space between the needles and everything, and so I just knit it with 2 different sets. And so those are turning out really nice. Do I have any other notes there? Yeah, that was it and stuff. So that's my very portable project. Now, the next one I started was I've knit 4 emotional support chickens this year so far. Not 4, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself, 3. Now I have started my 4th emotional support chicken. Ta-da! Maybe that'll be the thumbnail. And so this is the beginning of my 4th emotional support chicken. This is will be another Christmas gift. And I'm really happy with how this yarn is knitting up in the tail, and I've just started it on the body. And so I'm using some Laughing Cat fibers. Let's see, let's fold that in half and see how that tail would look. This is Laughing Cat fibers superwash merino worsted that she has, and this colorway is called Campfire, and you can see why. But I think it does a great job of looking like the tail feathers of a very colorful chicken. And then I'm using some Cascade 220 in this brown that kind of matches the brown that's in this Campfire colorway. And so because it started on the body, so I think I will have this done for next time so I can show off how it turns out. I did my flat kind of knit together seam at the top. I have actually a video I can link below on how I do that, but it's basically a 3 needle bind off that produces a flat chain on the top of the 2 pieces you're putting together. And I'm trying to see if you can see what this, yeah, it's kind of interesting on the other side. You can see how that looks. You can just see that strand holding everything together. And so that turns out really nice, but I love the colorways and how they're coming together. And so, yeah, so 4th chicken for the year. I have 1 more that I want to make in time for Christmas, and I'll sprinkle that in there somewhere once I finish this one. But yeah, I thought you guys would get a kick out of that. All right, so that's the emotional support chicken. I actually got a special request from my middle son, who used to be embarrassed about me knitting in public. But interestingly, he wants me to knit him a little gift for a girl that he likes. And this is, this isn't like a high school age boy. My sons are in their upper 20s and stuff. So, but I found a good pattern for what he wanted me to make, and I'll probably get that started so you'll get to see that next time. But I really love it when my sons have a request for something that they want me to knit. So now the other thing I wanted to talk about on Works in Progress is I have a basket that was accumulating items that I'd basically finished the knitting and got them off the needles, but they needed ends woven in. Now, I can definitely be a procrastinator about weaving in ends. I know a lot of people are. And finally, I'd had so much accumulate in that basket that I was just not getting to it. And I decided, I think I mentioned this last time, I decided to start weaving in 10 ends a day for the rest of the year. Now, if I'm able to do that, that'll be, so there's at least 30 days in each month times 5, 150, plus the extra 3, like 153 days times 10 would be 1,530 ends woven in by the end of the year. Now, I'm certain I don't have that many ends sitting around on pieces, but I do have my finishing basket, which is here, and I'll show you. I actually did finally weave in the ends from the Stephen Wet Brio Clava, and so it is all done and blocked and ready for the coming cold weather now. And I actually finished off the ends in this pair of socks that I'd shown finished last time, and I was going to show you. I did make an attempt to tidy up here, which I think I did okay at, not perfect, but it does, there's no gaps and stuff there now. And these are actually a pair that they're going to be for my husband. And then I also have been working on weaving in all the ends in from my Stephen West Mystery Knitalong, the, oh no, I can't remember the name of it. Wait a minute. I'm not going to look it up. Geo something. Oh, I can't remember. But this is my Stephen West 2023 Mystery Knitalong. And I have lots and lots of ends to deal with, and I've just been doing 10 a day. I've been doing most of my focus on this at this point. So I got 10 a day to do. And I believe had I blocked, you know, I honestly can't remember if I've even blocked this yet. I think I may have. No, oh gosh, I can't remember. If I haven't, I'll be blocking it after I get all these ends woven in. And I got to make some tassels for it too. So that has been getting the most attention, but I've been doing it. I have a little task on my task list every day, weave in 10 ends, getting it done. And so it's been a really nice way to have, it's not demanding too much of me. 10 ends are pretty quick. And so if you want to join along and try to do 10 a day, maybe we should have a hashtag. I'll put something in the notes maybe that might be a good hashtag for Instagram for that. But yeah, so I've been doing that since the beginning of August. I started the beginning of August. All right, now acquisitions. So speaking of that shawl, let me grab that. Where did I put? Oh, it's right here. So when I knit this shawl back in 2021, did I say it was? Let's see. Yes, 2021. Again, it was a variety of colors in here, but there was one color that I really loved and it stood out, and it was called Sweet and Low. And so you can see it here. So it's got these pinks and yellows, and it's got little blips of black and everything. And I remember when I was at the knitting conference in Reno, earlier this year, I was wearing this and somebody said, "What is that color right there?" And the same thing, they loved it and stuff. So, oh, sorry, I'm showing you the wrong one. Duh. Let's try that again. All right. Here's the real deal. This one, this color. So the pinks and the yellows and the little smudges of black. And so somebody else noticed the same color and really was interested. And I explained the color is called Sweet and Low. And I actually got in touch with Jimmy Bean's Wool about that color, I think back in 2022, because I was interested, and I looked for it on their site and it wasn't there. And they said, "Oh, we could always, dye it for you." And I don't know. I didn't want to, do a special order or anything like that, because I felt like I just want to skein a bit to do something with. Well, on a lark, I actually searched online. I thought, well, I should look at the Madelinetosh site. I don't know why I didn't think of this then, but I should look at the Madelinetosh site and see if they have it. Well, they didn't have it either. And then on a lark, I searched on Madelinetosh Sweet and Low, just on the internet in general. And wouldn't you know it, on Simply Sock Yarn, which is a little website yarn shop, she had Madeline Tosh in this Sweet and Low colorway. And I absolutely loved it. So I grabbed a skein in Tosh Sock because I didn't want the single ply. I wanted it to be a plied yarn. And oh yeah, it's just so neat. And you can see there are speckles of the black everywhere, but there's also little speckles, if you can see it, of the pink and everything. And I love it. So I kind of found out it was out there, couldn't resist, bought a single skein of it. It's 395 yards in a skein. So I had a little bit of yarn budget left from last time, about 110 yards. So for those who don't know, I require twice as much yardage to leave my stash as comes in. I earn yardage by finishing projects, and so I didn't have any projects finished since last time, and this came in. And so I had 110 yards of budget left, which I subtracted, excuse me, but I still had to make up for that total of 790. Two times the 395, 790 yards I had to account for. So I have some leftovers that I have are going to be part of that. But then I thought, when I was looking through my yarn, I actually did a full stash toss this past week. My husband's on vacation. He's not here right now, so I can kind of like take over spaces and do stuff. And so I filled the entire main room in the house with my yarn and did a full toss and kind of looked through everything, you know, inspected all my yarn, did all that kind of stuff. If you've never heard of this before, Stephanie Pearl McPhee recommends doing a stash toss. I try to say that twice a year to inspect for, you know, see if there might be moths or anything like that, and just see if everything's looking okay and that kind of stuff. And so I did that with my yarn, and I realized as I came across, I have, if you don't know Mandy's Makings yarn, she has these skeins that are called Share a Pair. And so when you buy them, when you buy a Share a Pair set, you get two sets like this. So I have another set like this, identical to this. And the idea is you share it with a friend and you both knit a pair of socks with the same pair of yarn. So you get a 50-gram skein of each color. Now this one, I know I wanted to knit a pair of socks for myself out of it, but I figured, and I have a very specific pattern in mind for this, but I thought that I'm not going to really want to knit two pairs of socks out of this. So I thought I would give away, and this would give me 415 yards of credit in my destashing. So I thought somebody out there might be interested in it. So the colorway here is called Harvest Sky and Countryside Drive. So if you're interested in this, I would have you put in, let's say harvest, the word harvest. So just put the word harvest in your comment somewhere, and I'll draw for this for the next podcast and stuff. But I thought someone might enjoy trying out one of these Mandy's Makings Share a Pair sets. So yeah, so that's that. Now, let's see. So that covers everything through stash management. Oh, and I had another couple of acquisitions. So I'm going to rewind. I have two more acquisitions that are non-yarn related that I did want to cover really quick. So the first one is this set of cards. If you can see that. Basic Doodle card deck from Pacific Knit Company. Now I've seen a bunch of people doing little cowls and things like that using these cards. And so the idea is you make you pick cards at random, and I'm always into the random kind of thing. You pick cards at random and you do a project in kind of a fair isle using this set of cards. And so now they actually have some cards that have a pattern, ideas for a pattern, and then a bunch of cards with different Fair Isle designs on them. And so the idea is that you would randomly pick from these and slowly work your way through a cowl of some type. And I just like the idea of playing around with these a little bit. So I did pick up a set of these. I haven't used them yet, but I've seen other folks who have, like Nitty Natty has done a cowl using this technique and using these cards. So I got myself a set and have it available to try now. Let's see if we can get a non-shiny picture of that. Yeah. And yes, there we go. So yeah, I picked that up. And then the other thing I got, and this is kind of funny, I had seen somebody had posted a picture of a sweater they'd worked on, and it had Fair Isle work at the top in 2 different colors. And what had happened when they went to block it, the color had in the contrast color had run into the main color, and they were bummed about that. And so I had responded to that, but I had also asked her, because I really love the sweater pattern. I thought, what is that sweater pattern? Well, I don't think she saw my comment for a while, but just a couple weeks ago, she responded and told me what the pattern was. So it turns out the pattern is from this book. So let me hold this up here. Echoes. And this is Susan Crawford. So 24 modern knits inspired by iconic women. And there are some beautiful patterns in here. You see that one on the cover. And I'll link to the book on Ravelry so you can see all the patterns. But this is the pattern that caught my attention. So let me see if I can put that up there. I love that pattern, that Fair Isle pattern on the yoke. I think it's really beautiful. And so I wanted to get this pattern, so I ended up, there was not a way to buy it electronically, at least when I looked. So I ended up picking up this book. I'm trying to think of where, I think I picked it up at Jimmy Bean's Wool, actually, because I had a free shipping coupon. And so I picked it up, and there are some other patterns in here that I really like that I am sure I will give a try, but it was really that one pattern that I was after here. So those are my other 2 acquisitions. Now on to the heart of the matter, Yarn Randomizer. And so I picked another yarn this week, and this is my 23rd yarn pick for the year. I actually have a longer queue than I normally do. Let's see, let me take a look at my queue. I think I have, and part of this is because I have a couple of, I have that project for my son, and let's see, so I have 9 items in my queue. Because I've picked so many sweater quantities, I'm actually going slower than usual. It's kind of different from last year, but this was the yarn that came out of my stash. So this is Madeline Tosh Farm Twist, and basically I think the idea is it is 2 strands of Tosh Merino Light plied together. And this colorway is called Get Up and Dance. And this was used, I believe, in the, I can't remember what year it was, a couple of years ago for their, it was part of their blanket, their annual, they have an annual blanket that they do, and you get a full skein each month, and they have a pattern that you work through, and you make a blanket through the course of the year that ends up using 12 full skeins of yarn. But I like this color, and I spotted it on sale on their site after the Knitalong was done, and so I picked up a few skeins of this. Now I may have had some idea for a sweater or something like that to begin with, but as I've looked at this and the colors and everything, I decided in this case I won't be using all of this, but I will use, it'll probably end up being a couple of skeins. I'm going to look which ones pair up the best. But the idea is to make an Oslo hat. I've always been really curious about the Petite Knits Oslo hat, and I thought this would be interesting, very soft, and would be an interesting project to use for this would be the Oslo hat. So that is my plan for this yarn, is to knit an Oslo hat, see how much of it I use up. Maybe I can get 2 out of this yarn, but at least knit 1. And I think that would make a lovely, lovely hat for me, and I've always been very curious about that pattern. So yeah, so that's it. That's everything. That's all the no finished projects, but projects in process and just things going on. I guess the only other thing was, if you missed it, I posted my second episode of my sock retrospective, and that is up, and I'm going to do another one of those retrospectives soon, but I have a couple other things I really want to do. The Make One Variations is one, about how you manage how much slack you have in Make Ones. And then the other thing I want to do, somebody requested it, and I should look back and see who this was. Yeah, somebody, Ricky, asked about how I make my spreadsheets. And so I thought, you know, I could do a video on how I make a spreadsheet. And the way I'll do it is I'll have to find a good pattern to do this with, but I want to do it with a free pattern, so that you can look through the instructions and see how the spreadsheet relates to the instructions and that kind of thing. So those are two that I'm thinking about, but I think I'm going to try to get the Make One Variations done first. Can't guarantee I'll have it for next weekend, but I may try, but we'll see. But other than that, it's been beautiful here. I've been enjoying kind of knitting at things and getting stuff done. I love it when I miss my husband when he's off on vacation. He's out riding his motorcycle up through Canada right now, but it gives me an opportunity. I love tearing down a room completely and putting everything back and organizing things and stuff. It's one of those things that brings me joy. I should take a picture. I've reorganized my yarn and stuff, and so it's all nicely tucked away and organized as well. I should take a picture of that sometime. But I really hope you're enjoying kind of the goings on where you are, what the weather is, whether it's this hot summer weather or whether it's cooler weather down in the southern hemisphere. And I hope you're enjoying the people you're with and everything that's going on, and that you're receiving kindness and taking care of yourself as well. So in the meantime, enjoy your knits.